Hello, welcome back to Mystic in the Matrix. Patricia here. Thank you for coming to my channel today. And today I would like to share a story with you. First of all, before I start my story, let's go back to one of my posts that I had posted, and it was about thoughts create your reality. Thoughts are powerful. I think that's what I called it. And it was when I was 15 years old and I had come across a Ouija board. And long story short, it told me that the main message was that my thoughts were a powerful tool. And, that had really scared me at the time because, it was an Ouija board, and sometimes that can be really intimidating as supernatural woo kind of thing, especially at 15 and telling me my thoughts are powerful. I thought it wanted to eat my brain or something. So it really freaked me out, But anyways, a year later from that, when I was 16, I was out with my father and my Nana. My Nana loved to go shopping, and sometimes she would take a long time. So my father and I were like, okay, Nana, here's your shopping cart. You go, we're at Woco's back then. And you're like, you go into the Woco's, you do your shopping. We're going to head down to the Timmy's just in the mall here, and we're going to go have a couple of coffees. And so, yeah, Timmy's was there in 1981. And it was just a small little one at that time, and there were some stools. So my father and I, we sat down, we ordered a cup of coffee each, and had a cigarette at that time as well. At 16, yes, I was allowed to smoke, and my father almost encouraged it in this weird way. So there we were, and we're sitting there and we're chatting, and he looks up at the plants that were up above on the ledge, and he says, you see the fern there? He goes, your mind's a really powerful tool, and if you concentrate on that plant, you might get it to move. And I just kind of looked at him, and I hadn't told him about my experience with the Ouija board that time, telling me my thoughts were powerful. And I would never tell him that because he was, anti things like this and didn't trust it. So I'm like, okay. And so I sat there for, 15 minutes staring at this fern, and nothing was happening. So a few more sips of my coffee, a few more drags of my cigarette, get back to it, looking up at this fern, focusing on it, nothing happened. So I'm like, yeah, sorry, Dad, not moving any ferns today. And so that was that. We never really talked about it again since then. But 5 years later, I would have been 21, and I was living on my own in downtown Toronto at Spadina and Bloor. I've mentioned this apartment building to you guys before. It's like a supernatural haven. It was crazy things used to happen in this building. And so I had just moved in, and I got set up, and so I got myself a couple of plants, and one of them was a fern. And I was sitting in my chair. It was a nice rocking chair, and I was sitting there and I was reading a book. I didn't have a TV at the time, and so I was reading a book, and I just happened to look up, and my fern went like this at me. Like, it actually lifted up and went like this at me. And I'm like, what the heck? It freaked me right out. And what came out of my mouth at that time was, you're a little late, aren't you? And don't you ever friggin' do that to me again, because you just terrified me. And at the time, I wasn't really sure if it was the plant actually communicating with me, or if it was some kind of weird shit happening in my apartment and it was making the fern do it. But something told me it was the fern, and it was the consciousness of this fern. And since that time, I've learned a lot about plant consciousness and how, there's so many species of things out there. We all kind of share this collective consciousness. Now, I hear a lot of people say that thoughts are not our own per se. They don't just our brain just doesn't hold thoughts or create thoughts, that we receive thoughts. So yeah, which kind of goes against that whole your thoughts are powerful. Your mind is powerful is how I perceive it. But your thoughts can be fleeting, and there's been times when I've recognized that some thoughts were not mine. It was something else. I'm like, what the heck? That's not my thought. I know it's not. And since then I've learned, about the collective consciousness. Well, I really do believe that plants are part of this collective consciousness, that, animals, and that's why there are animal whispers and things like this. Like we're all a part of this consciousness of thought. And one of the, back in 2000, when I got my computer and was able to research things online, I came across this guy called Cleve Baxter, and he had worked for the CIA. He did the lie detector tests with the electrodes and those things devices they put on you and stuff. And I guess this one time he got kind of bored and wanted to experiment a little bit, so he started using them on plants. And so what he did was he had this plant, he had the things all hooked up to it, and he put these brine shrimp in boiling water, and the plant, the meter thingy that reads it, started going crazy. And he's like, oh my God, like this plant reacted to something being killed near it. So he did a lot of experiments. Actually, what was his primary perception is one of his books that he wrote on this. And if you go on YouTube, you can find all kinds of videos. That's how I learned about him, on these experiments. And one of my favorite stories of working with the polygraphs was the story about how they put these plants in a room, and one of them was hooked up to the polygram, the things, and there were some other plants in there. And then he had a group of people. Now, one person was selected to be the one to go in and kill one of the other plants. Nobody knew which person was which. So there'd be a person would go in, they'd water the plants, they'd be loving, they'd leave. And finally, when the murder went in, they went in and they started killing other plants, not the one with that was having the polygraph, but the other plants. And they could see on the machine that the plant was actually freaking out. And they had the guy return, the person who did it, as part of the experiment to see, oh, is this plant going to react to these people? So the one who actually was the murder. When he went back into the room, the plant started freaking out again because it recognized him. Isn't that really amazing? Really amazing. And there's a school in Tel Aviv, I found in my research, an online course where they actually do have a course on plant consciousness, which I would love to have something like that, over here in Canada, because I would definitely take that course. It would be fascinating. So the mind and the connection to plants is way more vast than what most people think, right? I haven't had an experience personally of my plants doing this to me. But sometimes, like if I'm sitting doing some writing or just, whatever, all of a sudden I'll just have this really strong thought of my plants are thirsty. They need a drink of water. And I'll go check, and sure enough, they're dry and they need some water. So I still have that kind of relationship with them. Also, before I harvest anything from my vegetable gardens, I will always give thanks for them giving themselves their life force, their energy to me, that I may be able to consume it, as I thank them for the blessings of that. And the same with meat. I don't butcher anything, but I still do eat meat. But I like to give thanks and blessings towards it because, we're all here, we all have this consciousness that we share. And so I know it seems very animist, and call it what you will. Sure, I'll go for that. But I think that it could, at some point, it'll be interesting to see how much more we can connect with the plants. And so I have a lot of plants in my home, and I do try to have that relationship. Like sometimes I'll just touch them and tell them how beautiful they are and how much I love them. I've actually had some plants here in my house that I've had for over 20 years. I do have a fern, and it hasn't freaked me out. Sometimes, though, you know, if I'm standing close to it, all of a sudden I feel it on me, and I'm like, oh, you did kind of reach out. I've never seen it, but all of a sudden it'll be there, and I'll pick it up and I'll put it, you know, closer to where it was, or I think there is something to be said about that. And when you go out, when you hug trees, or just even the bugs and the bees and all of it, you know, we are so connected, all of us. And I think that's really important to remember, especially in this world that we're living in now, where there's a lot of forces out there that are striving to disconnect us from each other. I think it's really important to fight for the bees, to fight for the land, to fight for the trees, because we all exist. We breathe each other. Trees are our oxygen. We breathe out for them, the carbon dioxides, all of it. We are intertwined. And I think as humans, we need to remember that, like pesticides and herbicides, and it's poisoning the water, it's poisoning the plants. And if we do not take care of the plant life and the earth around us, we will never be able to exist here any longer. So, strong message today. The thoughts of connected to the consciousness of plants is a really important one. And yeah, I guess that's all I want to say about that. So do go do some research on it. Clive Baxter on YouTube, the old black and white videos, and there's all kinds of other people, I'm sure, at this point. I haven't done any research in the last 10 years on it. So there might be a lot more things out there. And yeah, look it up. Anyways, take care, everybody, and love each other. Love the environment around you, because we're all in this together. All right, peace out.